think nobody's watching you and you just need to be a good person just because you want to be a good person, you go sit in that Ellen jail over there right now.
So since the stories around Ellen being awful are blowing up online, we thought we'd look into some other celebs that have a past of being mean in real life. And let me tell you, some of these are insanely shocking. So I guess buckle up and get ready for all your thoughts around some of the biggest celebs in the world to change forever. Hey, what's up, IOers? It's Mackenzie here, and today on the channel, I'm gonna be spilling some piping hot tea by filling you in on 10 celebrities that are mean in real life. And before I get into it, I did want to say that there's no real proof that any of these stories are true, so take it with a grain of salt and use these to come to your own conclusions about the celebrities that I'm going to talk about. And of course, celebrities do have bad days just like the rest of us, so there is a potential that some of these stories could be like one-offs. But with some of these, I can pretty confidently say that they are just all around bad people. So starting off with number 10, we have James Corden. James Corden is a TV host that seems incredibly nice on camera, but he's also pretty well known for being awful off-set. His rep is so bad that he did a Reddit AMA in 2019 and it practically turned into a roasting session, with tons of people bringing up terrible encounters they had with Corden. One user reminded everyone about the time that Corden showed up to a private Writers Guild meeting to advocate for lower pay for TV writers, even though they're known for being paid pretty low wages already. Another brought up how he saw the filming of A League of Their Own live, and he said he saw Corden throw multiple tantrums over very minor things. He also said that he got angry when fans politely asked for photos. Another Redditor spilled some major tea on some of the other late night hosts, along with Corden, saying, "I have an acquaintance who came over for dinner who had been on the writing staff for several late night shows, and he said that James Corden is an ass. Jimmy Fallon isn't fun to be around because he's a hopeless alcoholic, and that Jimmy Kimmel is a genuinely sweet, kind person." So yeah, there seems to be a lot of people pretty adamant that Corden's TV persona is completely fake. Next up at number 9, Bill Nye. Okay, so this one's incredibly shocking, and there's a part of me that's praying that it's not true, but also I don't think this commenter has any reason to lie. So one Reddit user wrote on a thread talking about good celebrities that they had an interaction with. One user said, Bill Nye. Granted, in the last few years, he's revealed himself as a self-centered jerk, but I'm reminded of a story from a podcast a few months back. A girl was working retail at a clothing store and Bill Nye walks in. He ends up at her register and she says something to the tune of, "Hi Bill, I just wanted to say I appreciate what you did for getting kids into science. I grew up watching your show." Then Bill replied, "And look where that got you." And when I tell you, my jaw has literally never dropped so far. This is just so insane to me because he seems so nice on his show and so many kids have grown up idolizing him, including myself, to be honest. So to hear that that could just all be a lie is really, really sad. Like, I feel like I just ruined Santa or something. It's really, really, really unfortunate. Comment down below if you grew up watching Bill Nye. Like, I used to love him before I had to report that story. Then in at number 8, Adam Brody. So YouTuber Gabby Hanna went full savage in a video she did with Joey Graceffa called Rudest Celebrities We've Met. In the video, she explains how she was asked and paid to go to an event for a new TV show that was starring Adam Brody so that she could go and make vines with him for promotion. And this was back when Vine was massive and Gabby was getting tons of views on the platform. So she goes to the event and when she meets him, he already seems like very reluctant to do the Vine with her. And when he asks for her ideas, she gives him her best idea and he savagely replies, "What else do you have?" Ooh. So at this point, she was freaking out, but she did come with 3 ideas, so she gave the other 2, which he also was not interested in. He even at one point said to her and his team, I don't really want to do that. So after refusing to do a simple 6-second Vine with her, they didn't end up collaborating. But she did get some sweet revenge. When an interviewer at the event asked Gabby later on, "You just met Adam Brody, how do you feel?" She looked confused, acting like she didn't know who he was. Then she pretended to remember and said, "Sorry, I've never seen The Hills." To throw some shade because Adam Brody and The Hills star Brody Jenner were constantly getting mixed up because of their similar names. In at number 7, Alicia Keys. So this is another one from a Redditor on a thread talking about rude celebs. This one was about Alicia. "I worked security at a local concert venue for over 10 years, and she was hands down the meanest artist that I rubbed elbows with. One night I was asked to stay late and work a meet and greet in the catering trailer after her show. I stood next to Alicia and her assistant at the time, guessing around 2006, while she met a group of fans one by one. Each fan gave her gifts and flowers and had roughly 30 seconds to say hello. Being so close, I was able able to hear every word she said to her assistant, and it wasn't pretty. She basically badmouthed the entire group. She had something negative to say about almost everyone's outfits and appearance. Considering how long ago it was, here's to hoping that she has grown up since then. Wow, yeah, I'm hoping that she has changed since then, because making fun of fans that waited and probably paid to meet you in a meet and greet just seems like the most disgusting thing ever, honestly. Like, that's probably the lowest thing, to make fun of your fans and the people that support you. I don't know. Then next up at number 6, Usher. So another Redditor spoke about Usher, saying, I met Usher at a party once. One of the rudest and most diva-like people I have ever met. Made small talk with him about his time in the country. We were both visiting the UK at the time, and mid-conversation, he asked what made me think I could approach him. Keep in mind, we were both guests of a mutual friend. The dress code was black tie, and he rocked up in a t-shirt and hoodie. Another dude asked for a picture with him, and he was like, how about you go get another drink instead, and walked off. This was on the street then, for sure, but again, this was at a party where literally everyone was taking selfies. The guy who threw the party found out and had a few words with him. He stayed about 30 minutes and then left. Like, bro, just don't show up if you're not gonna have a good time. I've since spoken to more people who have met him, and this seems to be normal behavior. Yeah, this just seems ridiculous. Like, how on earth could anyone think that they can say, what made you think you could approach me? If this is true, Usher is straight up horrible, and I'm hoping this is part of his karma, because this is just wild and gross. Then up at number 5, Julia Roberts. So another one from Reddit, but this one was actually backed up by a ton of other commenters. So this seems pretty legit to me. A user said, I worked on a photo shoot with her, and all I gotta say is wow. From the moment she showed up to the moment she left, screaming at everyone about everything. An absolute B to the nicest people who didn't do anything to deserve it. Apparently that's how she always behaves when there's no cameras on her. Lost every ounce of respect I had for her that day. And then someone replied under that, it's pretty well known that Steven Spielberg hates her because she was a pain in the ass to work on the set of Hook. She was in her early 20s at the time and acted like a spoiled little brat. I guess she never grew out of that. And wow, Julia Roberts? I guess I can't watch Eat, Pray, Love the same way again? That's like one of my all-time favorite movies. Ugh, Julia. Julia, that is just something. Next up at number 4, Jerry Seinfeld. So this one's about Seinfeld, whose whole brand is about being likable, down to earth, and clean with his comedy. One user wrote, Seinfeld came into a restaurant I bartended at for an interview for a magazine. He was a regular for us. When he came in, he'd act like someone of his caliber. Wants to eat as soon as he can and then duck out. When people noticed him, he'd wave and keep it pushing. No one ever bothered him because everyone knew him from the neighborhood. On the particular day that he comes in to do his interview, he tells his server, the same girl who always serves him, to F off when she comes to do her how's everything going for you round. She'd only come up that one time after the food was dropped off. The interview stopped there. Interviewer got up and left. Seinfeld throws his hands up and leaves shortly after. Nothing appeared to be off before, during, or after in terms of his behavior. It took everyone by surprise, including Ron Howard, who had just finished his meal. Okay, so I have so many questions about this one. Firstly, why would he be such an ass at a restaurant that he goes to frequently? That doesn't make any sense. And also, he clearly gives no shits if he was gonna be that rude in front of a reporter. Like, what if the reporter decided to include that in whatever interview that they were doing? Also, shout out to that reporter for not having any of that and just leaving. They must have been someone pretty high caliber to have the guts to do that and just leave Seinfeld, but props to them. And then lastly, the part about Ron Howard just being surprised was hilarious. I can just picture him in the restaurant like giving the biggest side eye while eating. Oh my god. Next up at number 3, Demi Lovato. Okay, so this one's really messed up and slightly dark, so I just want to warn you guys. Another commenter wrote, a few years ago, I was with a coworker friend and Demi Lovato was at an event near where we worked. Now, I did not and still don't care about her, but my friend was so over the moon for her and went on about how she had her book, how Demi got her to stop cutting, and so on. Demi walks our way and my friend starts to say things like, oh my god, you got me through my depression, and Demi made a face, rolled her eyes, and walked around us. It broke my friend's heart. She never mentioned Demi after that. Okay, I'm really hoping this one is not true because Demi's always been such an ally of mental health struggles and she speaks so openly about her past with depression. It's really upsetting that she would just ignore that kind of comment from a fan. I'm really hoping that Demi was just busy here or didn't hear her correctly or something else that could excuse this, because this is truly, I'm not saying this commenter's lying, but wow, that is just so that is just seems so off-brand. That seems really, really strange, but I guess that's what these are all about. In at number 2, Jeff Daniels. So another user on Reddit wrote, Jeff Daniels is the guy from Dumb and Dumber. He lives right next door to my cousins and is very disliked in the community. He always assumes everyone will mob him and ask him for autographs or whatever, so he won't interact with anyone. He's lived next to my cousins for at least 15 years and he's only talked to them once or twice. My favorite anecdote is that my grandpa once sat next to him in a bar and tried to strike up conversation. Jeff Daniels was an ass and left. The bartender told my grandpa not to worry about it, he just doesn't like to talk to fans. And my grandpa was like, wait, who the heck was that? It turned out my grandpa had never heard of Jeff Daniels. He was just trying to be friendly. So this could almost sound like a case of someone that maybe doesn't realize that they're not famous anymore. Like, chill, not everyone knows who you are. Even if they did, it doesn't mean that they're gonna just drool over you and hound you for pictures or something. But if he's acting like that, he probably has kind of a shitty life anyway, so again, this might just be his karma. And finally, at number 1, Ellen. So if you watched Charlotte's recent video on Ellen, then you already know the tea on this. And I just gotta say, I was so happy to see that she was exposed because I've seen online for years that Ellen is terrible to her employees and acts like she's, above everyone. So I'm happy that this shows that karma is somewhat real and you can't just be terrible to people and think that no one's ever gonna notice. Like, people remember things, and now the internet, stuff can get out there pretty quickly. But the main things that Ellen was called out for was treating her employees like garbage, getting angry when they talked or even looked at her, and having an incredibly short temper when anything went wrong on set. And then that doesn't even come close to how she treated random strangers. Her behavior is so bad that she was even given the title of notoriously one of the meanest people in Hollywood. So if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what does. If you want to know more of the details on her and all the stuff that she's done, go watch Charlotte's video. So starting off, we have Pierce Brosnan. And this one is even more insane because the person that called him out for being rude is none other than James Corden. And if you watched the last video, you would know that James Corden is someone who is notoriously rude. So Pierce must have been awful if James thinks he's bad. Basically, on Corden's show, during his Spill Your Guts or Spill Your Guts segment, he had Khloe Kardashian on. And she asked Corden who was the rudest celebrity that he had ever met. And after a lot of debating, he blurted out Pierce Brosnan as he shoved him at a U2 concert. Corden said, quote, Pierce Brosnan, I don't think he's a rude man, he just happened to be to me. I went to see U2 and was there with my friend Lewis and his wife and my wife, and Pierce Brosnan was with some friends, and they left halfway through the gig, and we left the space for them. And then they had been gone quite a long time, and Bono was like right there on this sort of big runway in the middle of the show. So me and my wife moved into this area, and literally I've never felt anything like it. This arm went on here and just pushed me out of the way, and I looked at him and he didn't even glance at me, and he just moved back into his area. So yeah, I guess Corden was really salty that Brosnan forcefully took his seat back. And on the one hand, I can see why Brosnan was a bit rude, as he probably thought Corden was like trying to steal his seat. But also, since Corden isn't a random person, Pierce definitely could have handled that better, like in interaction with a fellow celebrity. He also has this thing that I never heard of till now called a Mean Stars profile. And his rating is decent. So hey, this could have just maybe been a one-off. In at number 9, Rachael Ray. So Rachael Ray is actually one that a lot of you put in the comments of my first video. And after doing some research on her, man, does she have quite the mean streak. She reportedly has a short temper, and she once allegedly said, quote, I need stupid people not to talk to me, to a member of her own staff. And she's been accused of every bad thing possible, it seems. From tipping food servers poorly to feuding with her mentor, Oprah Winfrey, and even fellow chef Martha Stewart. Unfortunately, she also has a ton of family drama as well that spills over into the tabloids. But I think the most telling indication that she is mean in real life is the fact that most of her fellow celebrity chefs openly do not like her. With Martha Stewart outing Ray, saying that she told Martha that she couldn't bake, with Martha taking a jab that Ray seems to be more of an entertainer than a teacher, like Martha is. And then the late Anthony Bourdain also had some shady things to say about Ray. Most notably was in a now deleted blog post, where he said, quote, we know she can't cook. She shrewdly tells us so. So what is she selling us? Really, she's just selling us satisfaction. The smug reassurance that mediocrity is quite enough. Bourdain portrayed Ray as sort of an anti-Julia Child, who rather than enlightening aspiring home chefs and inspiring them to cook better food, quote, uses her strange and terrible powers to narcotize her public. So yeah, if you make an enemy out of your colleagues, I'm guessing something's up. Then next up at number 8, Amy Schumer. So Amy Schumer is another person who's had some unsavory encounters with fans. One time that got a lot of press was in New York City when an Upper West Side Equinox asked her to present her membership card, which is standard practice at the Upscale Fitness Club, and she refused, claiming that since she was famous and everyone knew who she was, she didn't need to check in. One source told Page 6, quote, she felt entitled to just walk in. She didn't want to show her key fob and just wanted to be able to go in and not be questioned. The source continued, quote, it was clear that Amy just wanted to go in under the radar and not even stop to have the desk clerk look up her account on a computer, said the source. So yeah, this is just a classic case of a celebrity being super entitled. Really happy she was exposed here. Next up at number 7, Mike Myers. So Mike Myers does not seem to be as funny and chipper in real life as he generally portrays being on screen. And his Mean Stars profile shows that he's overwhelmingly mean. So clearly the interactions I'm going to be talking about below aren't the only bad ones that he's had. One user wrote a comment on his Mean Stars profile, and they said, quote, I had a friend from out of state swinging through town and we met in NYC for lunch and a couple of drinks. We are eating at the bar and I see further down that Mike Myers is at the other end of the bar watching a soccer game on the television and drinking a beer. I had never encountered a celebrity before and I didn't want to be some obtrusive a-hole, but prior to paying our tab, I walked over and said, quote, hey Mike, I'm a big fan, can I buy you a beer? And without even turning to look at me, he said, quote, I can afford my own drinks, a-hole. Save your money for my next movie. I stood there speechless for a second and embarrassingly turned back to my spot at the bar. We paid our tab and split without saying a word. I felt like a dickhead, ha ha ha. So yeah, I'm definitely hoping I don't run into him in real life anytime soon. And at number 6, Dan Aykroyd. So Dan is another person who is not all they seem to be on screen, with an overwhelming consensus on his Mean Stars profile that he is mean in real life. He currently lives in a small suburb of Ontario, and a lot of the residents that live there tell stories about how he travels with a group of bodyguards that are notorious for being rude and intimidating. So this story is another one from his Mean Stars profile. The person said, quote, my friends and I definitely had a few encounters with Dan Aykroyd in Kingston when we were studying at Queen's. One in particular was pretty hilarious. We were enjoying a post-bar snack at Pita Pit when Dan Aykroyd and his entourage cut in front of a large line of people. Dan ordered a few pitas and slapped down a $100 bill. When the cashier told him that they did not accept $100 or $50 bills, he became very enraged and yelled that he, quote, owned this town. He stormed out of the store swearing and making a scene. My friend jumped out of her seat, ran outside and yelled at him, quote, you lost your touch, Dan. Legendary. So yeah, I guess he's pretty two-faced and way different than his iconic Ghostbusters character. Really, really unfortunate to see. Next up at number 5, Kate Winslet. So Kate is another person who is well known for being rude off set. One notorious time that she got fans up in arms was when she ignored fans who stood out in the rain in hopes of meeting her while she was filming one of her movies called Labor Day. Fan and local resident Shanna Swan told Star magazine in the US, quote, Kate was so rude. She never once acknowledged any of us. I was devastated. Then she added, quote, she gave dirty looks to people in my town who waited hours to see her. Upon her arrival, everyone was yelling, Kate, we love you. And you could hear everyone gasping with excitement when her black Cadillac pulled up. However, Shanna claimed that the whole town was left upset when the Oscar-winning actress wouldn't even look over to acknowledge them. And yeah, that's really upsetting, but in Kate's defense, if she was on set, she has a lot to be focused on. She has to be focused on her acting and all the other things she needs to be doing to get her character correct. So she might not have been trying to be rude, but she was just preoccupied with the task at hand. I don't know, what do you guys think of this one? Then in at number 4, Sandra Bullock. So Sandra can be thought of as one of America's sweethearts, especially after her iconic role in The Blind Side. But she's had a few experiences in real life that have caused fans to think twice about her. One time was when a disabled veteran allegedly asked her for an autograph. She then covered her face and hurled verbal abuse at the man. The man's wife, Denise Coates, told Star magazine in 2012 about a run-in with the actress while she was out with her husband, a veteran who was in a wheelchair. Sandra was in Boston filming The Heat, where she ran into the couple during a filming break. Denise said, quote, Sandra was so rude. She covered her face and yelled. He just wanted an autograph, and she actually yelled at him. Now, we understand not having time to greet fans. We understand how annoying it probably is to be hounded by mobs. But a single wheelchair-bound veteran and his wife? In what world does their polite request for an autograph warrant a yelling match? So yeah, I get that she was busy, but to verbally accost some fans, especially if it was just him and his wife, like that's really disgusting. And at number 3, Adam Levine. So Adam Levine might not be all that shocking to some of you, considering that he doesn't exactly sport a nice guy persona on screen, but nonetheless, he's a person who a lot of fans think is rude in real life. One notorious time he was awful in real life was when allegedly a fan asked for his autograph, and he said back, quote, "I don't give autographs to ugly chicks." Wow. Then a lot of people have called him out for constantly feuding with his The Voice co-judges. He's well known for constantly spatting with Blake Shelton, but he's known to cross the line. Like one time when after a verbal tiff on the show, he mumbled under his breath, quote, "Sorry, I just hate him, that's all." But everyone still heard it, and it was really awkward. He also had beef with Christina Aguilera in the past while she was on the show. As well, he's very critical of Miley Cyrus during her time on the show, reportedly calling her, quote, "the most obnoxious person ever." He also allegedly threatened to quit the show because of his off-camera feuds with Miley. And my rule of thumb is that if one person is always fighting with other people, it's probably the common denominator, aka Adam here, that's the problem, not his fellow judges. But you guys can leave your thoughts in the comments below on that. Then at number 2, Jon Hamm. So this one is extra juicy because it involves one celebrity calling out another. In this case, Kathy Griffin called out Jon Hamm for being rude to her at a party. In her memoir, comedian Kathy Griffin shared a story about Jon Hamm confronting her at a party, asking her who invited her. He went on to make comments about her failed career and mocked her age. At the dinner, she was speaking with Jack Nicholson when Hamm said to her, quote, "What are you doing here?" And she replied, "I earned my seat at the table. What are you doing here?" Kathy said that Jon continued to get drunk as she was discussing Rupert Murdoch with Jack, where she continued saying, quote, "Hammy picks that moment to start whispering boozy yammering into my ear. First it was, 'You know your Emmy isn't a real Emmy.' Kathy said she let that one go, but then he whispered, quote, 'You're so old.' And Kathy admitted it was not only the rude comments that pissed her off, but the fact that he was interrupting some precious alone time she was having with Nicholson. And wow, I don't know how he thought he could be rude to someone like Kathy Griffin and she wouldn't expose him. So yeah, really happy he got his karma here with her blasting him in that book. He definitely deserved it. And finally, taking the number 1 spot, Catherine Zeta-Jones. So Catherine is taking the number 1 spot because it's sad that she was rude, but it's even worse because she was allegedly rude to a child. As when an 8-year-old fan told Zeta-Jones that she wanted to be an actress like her, she was left completely devastated. The girl recalled the awkward moment years later when she said, quote, "She turned to me, looked me up and down, and said, quote, 'You're pretty enough, I suppose.' Then went back to her conversation. I went from feeling at ease in the world to constantly thinking about how everyone was judging me on my appearance." Wow, yeah, I cannot blame this fan. The fact that Catherine was so harsh to this young fan is something that she should really never be forgiven for, in my opinion. But something else that made me second guess her was when in an interview, she revealed to the Mirror, quote, "I'm sick of being humble. I really am. So sorry I'm rich. So sorry I'm married to a movie star. So sorry I'm not bad looking." So yeah, it seems like being down to earth and grateful for her success is not her strong suit. Starting off at number 10, Jared Leto. Since a few of you said that I should have included Jared Leto in my part 2, here he is in part 3. So this one is straight from his Mean Stars profile, which I talked a bit about before, where he has a few comments from people stating that they had really bad interactions with him. So one of the people on Mean Stars wrote, quote, "I went to see 30 Seconds to Mars a few years ago and got front row tickets. The band was autographing things after the show, so I waited in line. They all talked amongst themselves as they absentmindedly signed autographs. When I got to Jared Leto, I said, 'Hey, that was a great show.' He responded, quote, 'I signed your shit, now F off.'" Okay, what? This is just unreal to me. Like I think I'm actually speechless about this one. Like, how could he actually say that to a fan? Jared, come on. Then next up at number 9, Michael Phelps. So Michael Phelps is another celebrity that is known for having quite a mean streak. And it's so bad that another athlete felt the need to call him out publicly about it. In an interview, Ronda Rousey was asked if there was an Olympian that wasn't very nice, but they had a public persona of being nice. Without hesitation, she replied, "Michael Phelps kind of annoyed me." Then she went on to tell a story of when she was in Beijing for the Olympics, and the American team was mingling together at a club. And she said the only Olympian that did not interact with the rest of the group was Phelps. Rousey commented further, saying, quote, "Michael Phelps needed his own private section of the club to be like private for him. All of these NBA players are a bigger deal than this guy, and they're hanging out with the rest of us. She added, we're your teammates. We're not a bunch of groupies. Come hang out with us, she said. And then, since she did not already shade him enough, she continued that the same thing happened on the Oprah Winfrey show. When a bunch of Olympians were on the show, Phelps again was held back in a private area so that he wouldn't have to be harassed by the other Olympians. Then after all of this came out, Phelps spoke to Details magazine, where he admitted that he used to contrive early exits from practice and sneak out the back door, presumably so he could get to the club early and avoid running into Ronda Rousey. And guys, trust me when I say there is a lot more stories about Phelps. So yeah, I'm assuming he must be pretty mean in real life. Next up at number 8, Deadmau5. So this is another story from a Mean Star's profile. So this post is a bit on the longer side, so I'm gonna kind of summarize it. Basically, this person is a producer and he wanted to give a demo to Deadmau5. So he went to a show in his city, and after Deadmau5 was done performing, people formed a line for him to sign things. Then when it came down to this person's turn, he said, quote, I don't have anything for you to sign, but I would like to say that you are an inspiration to me. So I'd like to share with you some of the music that I produced, which has been inspired by your production. And the person handed him the CD, and Deadmau5 looked super confused before he replied, quote, this is a signing, not a demo showcase. Either I sign this or you mail it to me, the person stated. The person then stated, I was taken aback by his rudeness and just shyly responded, I'd rather you keep it. He turned back to his tag-along friends and said, can you believe this guy? While chuckling. His friends kind of awkwardly laughed along with him while giving me this awkward look as if to say, I'm so sorry. I was so upset that I nearly punched the dude right there. I just walked away instead. I was so upset I felt ill. Then the person continued that he knows that getting handed demos must be kind of annoying, but he's given out a bunch of demos to people way more famous than Deadmau5 and was always treated with respect. So yeah, this is really rude to me. Like, even if Deadmau5 didn't end up doing anything with the CD, he could have still just taken it. Like, it would have been less effort than getting into this random argument in the middle of the signing, in my opinion. And at number 7, Jennifer Lawrence. So Jennifer Lawrence is another person that is well known for being rude to fans when seen out in public. And I'm absolutely confident that this one is true because she literally admitted it herself in an interview. In a video interview she did with Adam Sandler for Variety, she admitted that, quote, once I enter a public place, I become incredibly rude. I turn into a huge a-hole, she added, adding that it's her way of defending herself. She continued, quote, they say, can I have a selfie? And I'm like, no, Jen said. And this is not the first time she's admitted to being very defensive when she runs into fans. In an interview with the Daily Telegraph, Jennifer echoed similar sentiments of fans feeling too close to her because she's a public person. She said, quote, I think that people think that we are already friends because I'm famous and they feel like they already know me, but I don't know them. She said, I have to protect my bubble. Like, I have a weird job. I don't let this be reality. And I can definitely like see where she's coming from here, as fans can definitely get really dangerous and they can be really scary encounters sometimes. For instance, if someone were to post a selfie of her, then everyone in the world potentially could know exactly where she is at that exact time. But I think there's still a way to be kind about the situation instead of being just an a-hole to people that literally just appreciate you, like just your fans. Next up at number 6, Cameron Diaz. So this one's on the shorter side, but apparently Cameron Diaz is well known for not giving autographs and being really rude to anyone that asks for one. One person commented on an interaction that they had with Diaz, saying, quote, Cameron Diaz may be a talented actress, but she's persistently a terrible signer. Instead of just turning down a person's autograph request, she'll lecture them about how dumb autographs are. And this was all, of course, back in the day before selfies and pictures were the things that were asked of by celebrities. But wow, I can only imagine how much worse she would be now if someone asked for a picture instead of an autograph. Yikes, I would not want to be that person. Halfway through number 5, Justin Bieber. So since Justin has come out many times that he struggled with addiction and he's in a completely different place now, I'm gonna consider this story about Justin being rude to fans kind of like past Justin, as I don't think he would do this sort of stuff today. But either way, the tea is piping hot here, so I still thought I'd include it with that little disclaimer added. So Justin a few years back got into a few scandals where it seemed like he was being disrespectful to his fans. One time was when allegedly a fan tried to get a selfie with Justin and he replied something about how her lack of respect for him made him sick. And then there was another time where he was accused of spitting on a group of fans that were gathered below his hotel balcony in 2013. But after he got a lot of backlash for doing this, one of his reps had to come out saying that people were not directly below him and he didn't actually spit on anyone. But the fact that he would even do a gesture like that to his fans below is kind of shady to me. And at number 4, Chevy Chase. So Chevy is another person who has a few stories that have given him a bad rep. And he actually has a pretty famous history among people in the industry of being difficult to work with. There are countless accounts of him being disrespectful to coworkers. So based off that, you can probably imagine he's not the nicest to fans either. Actor and comedian Rob Huebel is someone that shared their really terrifying encounter with Chase. Huebel said that he was a huge fan of Chase's and he went backstage to meet him at an Upright Citizens Brigade show. While he was telling Chase what a huge fan he was of his. Allegedly, Chase responded to this love by slapping the man so hard in the face that he saw red. What? And then after, Chevy tried to make a joke of it by saying, quote, "Can't you see I'm talking to someone, kid?" And I do want to say, in life, I really do like to believe there's always two sides to every story before I make a judgment on someone, but wow, this is probably the worst one I've ever heard, and I really don't know how you could even explain away why you slapped a fan. Like, this is probably the worst one on here. Then in at number 3, Christina Aguilera. So Christina is another person who has a bad rep among other celebrities. While Valerie Bertinelli was on Andy Cohen's Late Show, he asked her to spill the tea on why she did not like Christina Aguilera. Bertinelli clarified that she and Aguilera didn't have an all-out feud, but Aguilera did snub her at one of her ex-husband Eddie Van Halen's concerts. Bertinelli described the situation by saying, quote, "I was a fan at that time, and I went up to her because she was at a Van Halen concert. And I said, oh my god, I think you're a beautiful singer." And she just went like, "Yeah, whatever." She gave me the cold shoulder, and I thought, bitch, I'm a fan. You couldn't just be nice to me. So yeah, clearly not a really friendly encounter. After Cohen asked Bertinelli if she's seen Aguilera since, she replied saying, quote, "I have not, no. But you know what? She might have gotten better, but I heard she hasn't." And I just love how she finished it off with that final burn. Like, oh my god, what a legend. Then in at number 2, Hugh Grant. So I included Hugh Grant on this list because he's yet another celebrity that has had some unsavory encounters with other celebrities, including Jon Stewart, who had banned Hugh Grant from his show, The Daily Show. Stewart admitted to this in a Q&A he did with Stephen Colbert. Well, he revealed that his show had some very controversial guests. Grant was the rudest person on the show. He said, quote, "Grant was giving everyone shit the whole time, and he's a big pain in the ass." Stewart continued that while promoting his new film at the time, Did You Hear About the Morgans?, Grant openly griped about the clip chosen to run on the show. He said, quote, "What is that clip? It's a terrible clip." Grant angrily asked, to which the host shot back, quote, "Well then make a better effing movie." Which is just so savage. Like, this is why I love him. But after this came out, Grant actually was pretty understanding about the whole situation and joked on Twitter that Stewart was correct to give him a kicking. So after that, I would hope that the incident was just sort of a one-off for Hugh Grant, and it seems that he's most likely changed since he's able to joke about it now, which is really good to see. And then up at number 1, Jennifer Lopez. So taking the top spot, we have J-Lo. And before doing this video, I had no idea that she had such a mean streak, but I literally found like a 20-page article online with all of the mean stuff that she has publicly done. So I can only imagine all the mean stuff she has done behind the scenes to people. One of the biggest things that have caused people to think she's mean in real life is the fact that she constantly talks shit about other actresses publicly. Among the names she has publicly dissed are huge stars like Gwyneth Paltrow, Winona Ryder, and Cameron Diaz. When speaking about these women, the common theme was that she did not think they are good actresses, and she didn't feel they deserved their success. Another strike on JLo's record is that she apparently does not talk to service people. Instead, she makes her assistants talk to them for her. This came out when a United Airlines attendant said he offered her a drink on flight, but JLo refused to answer and told her personal assistant to say to the flight attendant, "Please tell him I'd like a Diet Coke and lime," instead of literally just telling him herself. Do you know much? And the last thing that's probably not true, but I just found really funny, was that A-Rod, her now fiance, is allegedly terrified of J-Lo. She allegedly gave him a list of rules that he has to follow to be with her, and that he's been given an exact position of where to stand when they are on red carpets together, which is just hilarious. I doubt that one's true, but I just thought of course I had to include it. So that's all from me, guys. Please like and subscribe down below if you liked, and follow the team on our Instagram so we kept up with us. Mine's down below if you want to check it out. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and if you subscribed, I will see you in the next one.